Carlos Nelson with the Kansas City Business Association. And tonight we have someone that I've known for some time, met through one of my vice presidents, Jeff Primos, Miss Gwendolyn Washington. She's been in the field of banking, mortgages, and working in the community to help strengthen our financial knowledge. That's what I would say in a capsule. Without further ado, welcome, Gwen.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be with you, Carlos. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Tell our audience with my line, go back to kindergarten and tell our audience a little bit about yourself and be specific about some of the mentors that you've had coming up in your life to help you get become the person you are. And then we'll talk about your career in banking and mortgages and what have you.
Sure. So I'm originally from East St. Louis, Illinois. And in 1989, I came to Kansas City. So my sister and I, she graduated from college. And she decided that she either wanted to go to Atlanta or she was going to go to Kansas City. She came to Kansas City, and in 1989, I came with her. But when I think about being raised in East St. Louis, I think about all the schools from grade school to junior high school, went to Rock Junior High School in East St. Louis, was part of the marching band, graduated from East St. Louis Senior High, the Flyers. A lot of people know about East St. Louis Senior High because they produce a lot of great football players and basketball players. And just had an all-around great early part of my life in East St. Louis. Didn't really experience a lot of tragedy or racism, actually, until I went away to college in 1979. And I love to tell this story because we're not that far away from where we were back then, but went away to college. And I remember being in a dorm, and there were only 4 Black women in this dorm. And all of a sudden, one day, we all started to notice that whenever we walked into the shower, into the bathroom, everybody would leave who didn't look like us. And that was an eye opener for me. And I tell that story because I think it has obviously, it's affected me in the way I look at life. And so what I learned from that time in my life was that there were some people who will always think negative and look for reasons to be separated. And then there are going to be people who come together. So my time at the university really met some really great people. We came together, we learned from each other. Growing up in the 70s, in my opinion, is when the best music was ever created. So I'm a true 70s fan. And just had some great teachers. One of my favorite teachers when I was in high school was a lady named Sharon Joyner. And she was an English composition teacher. And I like to write. And as a matter of fact, Carlos, you and I met way back when I wrote a book. So I like to write. And she really, really inspired me. She was one of the first teachers that basically said, you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. And I oftentimes think about her even now as I've grown older and continued my writing. But when I came to Kansas City, one of the biggest things that was an eye opener for me, or at least I felt, was that the Black community, I didn't feel like we were a cohesive community. Now, growing up in East St. Louis is 98% Black. So when I grew up, the mayor was Black, the chief of police is Black, the doctors, the dentists. So my view of what a Black person could be was anything and everything. But when I came to Kansas City, I did not see that. What I saw was Black people who wanted to do things, but either didn't believe in themselves to do it, or didn't have the knowledge to do it. They didn't have mentors. And so I always felt that was something that I wanted to do and I wanted to be. Growing up with my grandparents, my grandmother was the most influential person in my life. My grandmother graduated, she went to school to the 6th grade, but she was extremely wise. And she always told us that we could do anything and be anything. She always thought I was smart, but I didn't like school. But it wasn't that I didn't like school. I'm a free thinker. And I felt that school didn't always support people who are critical thinkers. But my grandmother was very influential in my life. And she got cancer in 1989. I came to Kansas City. My sister was here. And she said, hey, come to Kansas City and I'll open up a beauty shop for you, because I was a hairstylist. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't open up a shop. I went to work for Boatman's Bank and I was a commercial drive-up teller. So that started my banking career. I learned a lot during that time. Boatman's had a really great program that allowed you to take banking classes that they paid for. And some people didn't take advantage of it, but I did. Because I always thought it's always great to learn and to know as much as you can. I did that and spent a lot of years in banking, worked at UMB Bank, was an operations supervisor. And in 2003, I became a vice president for a credit union called Midwest United, which was also Teachers Credit Union, Kansas City Teachers Credit Union. It has since become Community America, but I spent 13 and a half years there. And so I really want to take a moment and talk about how I see the Black community and financial literacy, because I know that's near and dear to your heart as it is to mine. One of the things that I recognize is that probably about 60% of the people, we weren't able to open up accounts at that time. This was in 2003. And oftentimes banks will run you through check systems. We all have heard of that. And sometimes people had very small issues on their credit. It could be maybe they had a monthly service fee and they didn't pay it. The account was closed out. They owed money. So they were in check systems. They couldn't open up an account. And we got together, a couple of us at Midwest United, and we opened what we call Turning Point account, which was a second chance checking account. That was crucial because a lot of the people who came in to see us couldn't qualify other than that. So we made a lot of headway that way, dealing with people of color who had check systems records. Now they could open up an account. Excuse me. The other issue that I found is there was a real lack of understanding of credit. So a lot of people are afraid to pull their credit report. If they've ever been turned away for credit, they then believe that their credit's horrible, and so then they just don't investigate. And so we were able to come up with some products and services at Midwest United. And a lot of people know me. I run into people even now and say, didn't you just work at the credit union on Blue Ridge? And so I run into people and I say, yeah, that was me. And I always remember, Carlos, we had one lady who came to me. She said she had never, ever been approved for a loan. And when I got there, we had started this Turning Point checking account, which became a loan product that we had. She got her first loan with us. And I remember her coming into my office and saying she was going to frame her loan check because she had never been approved for a loan. So those type of things just really opened up my mind to the fact that we lacked a lot of education about finances. And some of it, rightly so, there's some discrimination in lending. I'm not going to say that that doesn't exist. It does. But for the most part, I think most bankers and especially credit unions, they try to do what's right for consumers. And as consumers, it is our right and we must be knowledgeable when it comes to credit. Also, when I was doing that, became a mortgage loan officer. And so I know how to do mortgage lending. That's my role now as a mortgage lender. And I see issues even with that. I also, and some people know this about me, is that I helped charter the first Black credit union in Kansas City, which is WeDevelopment Federal Credit Union. And I was very instrumental in getting that, worked with a great organization with that, John Webster as the chair. and I was able to help them get that charter. And as a matter of fact, we were one of the first credit unions chartered in probably years when we received our charter in August of 2022.
Can I
So
interrupt
there's
you for
that.
a minute? Tell,
Yes.
tell our audience, because we talked about a Jamu off camera, but I remember, man, it took a long time to make that happen, and y'all had to get a lot of resources. Run that down a little bit to our audience about the
So
team that you had to be part of and what y'all had to do to make that happen.
yeah, that's great. Thank you for that too, Carlos. And I want to really stress this to the community so that they can support WeDevelopment Federal Credit Union. So the organization, the John Moo Chair, they started in 2008, and some people know that. It took a long time. Sometimes the board changed, people came and went. And around 2016, I had left the credit union. And so I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. I was going to go into business for myself. And one of the board members approached me because he knew I had credit union experience and said, "Hey, would you mind helping us charter this credit union?" Now, mind you, just like yourself, Carlos, you and I are people that we may not know how to do it, but we'll figure it out. So we take on that task. And at that time, I had a lot of experience with credit unions and banks. I had worked front office management. I'd done deposit operations, back office. I had lending experience. So a lot of different skills that I could bring to the table. Around 2016, I started helping them part-time. And then in 2018, they worked with an organization, Urban Action Partners, who was their lender, who brought the money to the table. And we worked day and night. Terry Brown, I will always give kudos to Terry. Terry had Terry's an accountant and an attorney. And then I brought all the banking and credit union experience. And so he and I worked night and day, weekends, developing a cohesive business plan, coming up with deposit products and services, partnering with all the vendors that you have to have for a financial institution is a huge undertaking, because when you walk into a financial institution, what you see is the end product. What you don't know is all the things that happen behind. There's a lot of compliance that must be met. There's a lot of money that has to be deposited. So just so all of our listeners can understand, a financial institution works this way. People make deposits. Banks use the deposits to make loans. What they pay on deposits and what they earn on loans, that difference in between is their income. So when you go to a financial institution and they're saying, we want CDs, and they're paying you 2% on a CD. And if you make a loan with that same financial institution, let's say you got a car loan and you pay 10%, then you will see the difference. That spread is how they create income. So if a financial institution doesn't have deposits, it's difficult to make loans. And if they make loans and people don't pay their loans and they default, it becomes a problem. So one of the issues that Ajamu and the board recognize is that on the east side of Kansas City, it served a huge area that was underbanked, underserved. Oftentimes they use different money services, or they cash their checks at the grocery store. And so he really wanted to impact that area of East Kansas City. So that's why the credit union is on 31st and Prospect. And the products and services that we came up with, and one I always like to talk about and hope your listeners will understand, because it also goes to what I do now, is I developed a product that allows people on east side of Kansas City to use just the market value, the tax assessment value on their house, and borrow against that to make repairs. So when grandpa or grandma needs a ramp put on the house, or they need just windows or something. So smaller loans, and then loans that didn't have to have appraisals done. Because in our community, we're already challenged, right? Economically, we're challenged. The houses are blight. The communities are not that great. So the values of the house are usually not as much as if you went to a bigger bank and they do a full-blown appraisal, you've got to come out of your pocket for that. Then your house may not appraise for as much as you need. So we came up with a product to try to fill that gap. But being able to have a credit union in the heart of the Black community is extremely important. Not only is it important for people who are on fixed incomes because they're low to no fees, but for small businesses to find a way to go in and get a small loan to help with capital with their businesses. So that was a John Woo's goal, and it took from 2008 to 2022. Now, I always say I came on board full time in 2018. So I really say 2018 to 2022 is how long it took. But that's about normal. It takes 3 to 4 years to charter a credit union. You have to have a really, really strong board, a board that has a lot of people with a lot of business experience, people who are experienced in the industry. And then it takes a lot of money. And then it takes a lot of people believing in what you say you're going to do and that you do it. Like I said, there's a compliance or issues dealing with people like you will never understand this, but just being able to have an ATM machine that takes Visa. Well, so all of that negotiating and writing up compliance and policies I had to do with Visa. MasterCard, that's something you have to do. The NCUA, which is National Credit Union Administrator, they come in and they check your books. And they want to make sure you're doing what you say you're going to
I
do.
want them checking my books. they double zero, baby.
So they come in and they're going to check and make sure that you're doing, if you say you're going to help the community, you better be helping the community. So they're going to look at that. Are you making loans to the people in the community? How many are you turning down? What are you approving? What's your criteria that you use? So all of that is hugely important to run that financial institution. And then with that, I must say, I am so grateful there were several organizations that put money on deposit and
Go ahead and give them
WeDevelopment.
give them a shout out, honey.
I got to give a shout out to Gwen Grant, National Urban League, the Reach Foundation. They were so generous to us. Evergy, the city of Kansas City, tremendous help from all of these places that put money on deposit in WeDevelopment Federal Credit Union. Because without that money, it's very difficult to make those loans, and you have to make those loans to keep the credit union thriving.
Hey, Gwen, let me tell you this. You talked about your experience and you really showed it to me because I think I talked to you about when I used to have my general contracting company. And so what brought to mind, you said they go to cash the checks at the grocery stores. When I used to write my men's, they get their check, they used to go down to Golden Gate Liquor to get cash. And they used to use Bernard's Benz supermarket because of all of the financial situation with banking and what have you. And boy, it just, when you said that, it just brought back memories
yeah.
of that. And when you talked about credit, understanding credit, I didn't understand credit, and I had a major, large company. What is the credit source that they use, businesses use to do their credit per se?
There's a lot of different
Name one or
organizations.
two.
Are you talking like what
They
we would use?
They rate your business credit. At any rate, I didn't know. And when I first went to go buy cars here, and they would say, drive it home, take it and see whether you like it. My rating was so high, but I learned that after I made some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
What your credit, you hit on all of these points that when you're not educated to this stuff, you you can make some major mistakes, and that's if you have good credit. And having that institution in our community is really essential. Now that I'm interviewing you, I might try to drop a nickel in there if I can get it together. Yeah, because just like I want people to support us, we need to support our businesses. And how do you see that? I want to know how you see that. And I just had Deke Claiborne on with the with HUD, I think it is, or FDC, the loans. You work with them?
Yes. Well, so now the FDIC, they handle banks, and then credit unions are the NCUA. We're all governed by the government, so obviously we all have to do and be compliant with government regulations. But when we talked about credit, you've got three major credit reporting agencies. You've got Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. We have what we call a FICO score. But most people, when they go buy a car, that dealership is going to pull probably credit from, they may use TransUnion, they may use Equifax. And that score basically says, A, how long have you been buying things on credit? So when's the first time you opened up a line of credit anywhere? It talks about how long you've been paying online, paying your bills. So let's say, I tell this story, I have an uncle. My uncle called me one day and he said, Gwen, he said, my credit score. He said, I need to know how I can move it. And I said, what do you mean? I said, what's your score? He said, it's 895. I said, well, Unc, what do you want your score to be? He said, I want it to be 900. He said, because I know that it can be 900. I told my uncle, I said, your score is excellent. You pretty much can't get higher than that. But credit scores anywhere from about 620 as a mortgage lender, that's the lowest we'll take. Some will take 580. But from 620 to 850, TransUnion, I think, goes to 900. Sure, credit score is really comprised of those things. Credit card debt, your high limit based on how much you owe. If you have $1,000 limit, you owe $100, you have great capacity. So it's the difference between what your limit is and what you owe. That impacts your credit score. How long you've been in the credit bureau. When did you open up that first credit card? How you pay. Do you pay on time? Do you miss a beat? Are you 30 days delinquent? Your mixture of debt, installment debt, like your house, your car, and then revolving debt, like your credit card. So when they told you, Carlos, hey, Mr. Nelson, come on down, take that car home and drive it, they knew you had a great credit ready. And credit, and the community has to understand this, it affects insurance rates. It affects whether you can rent a house. It affects jobs. If you want a job with the government, they're going to pour your credit. So that's really, really important. And then as a financial institution, most financial institutions, even WeDevelopment, if you go there, they want a score that basically says this is a good risk. Once your scores get below 600, you become a greater risk. And then most financial institutions are either going to say no, or they're going to give you a ridiculous rate because they have to be able to mitigate that risk.
All right, I'm cutting you off again. I want to talk about what's your opinion of our community and how we spend our money. Let me put this in. Give my company a little plug. We're promoting block voting, group economics. They all result in the same bottom line. It enfranchises, puts you in position to have a seat at the table. And do you think that our community as a whole spends their money? People say we have all our money on our back. Can you talk about that, and then talk about the financial literacy part? As I said, we have the programs that we're initiating with juniors and seniors. how early we should be teaching our children about financial literacy?
So those are great questions. So first of all, I would say we should teach our children as soon as they are able to ask questions. As soon as your child says, Dad, Mom, what's that? You start to explain to them the value of money, the way money moves. I don't, some people are old school, and I remember coming up, parents didn't want to discuss finances with kids in the room. They tell the kids to leave. I think that's doing your children a disservice. I think you should sit down with your children. You should explain to them, talk about a budget. So when you talk about where is our money, it's clear that sometimes our money is in things that don't bring any value to us. For instance, buying a brand new car when you could get a used car, buying clothes and jewelry. It's okay to look nice and all of that. But if you don't have a home that you can go to that's going to appreciate in value and build equity, then what you spent your money on, it can go up in smoke. And so I do think that there is a reason why we do that. And Carlos, you would know because I know you're a historian. Back in the day, back when we left slavery, the way Black people would show other Black people they made it is they would do things like gold teeth, or it was the car and it was what they wore, right? So that's cultural, and we haven't deviated too far from it. And then when you look at some of the media personalities, the athletes and the entertainers and the way they dress, and it's not hard to understand why young people are drawn to that. But as parents and educators and the financial people and people like you in the media, we have a responsibility to teach our kids to say, if you want to dress that way, that's fine. You can do that. But let's make sure that you have your money spread out evenly. Invest in a home, invest in stocks and bonds, go into business for yourself, figure out how to pull your money together. And when you talk about young people, I've always been a fan and a proponent of teaching. So in every career that I've had, hiring young people, it is important to teach them what you know and to help them decide which way they want to go. I commend you for what you're doing with that group. Would love to be able to share more for that, but it absolutely is important. And it's important for us to come together and to vote the way that we need to vote so that policies and procedures and all of that that's happening in this country will benefit communities of color.
See, you hit it right on the head. We talked off camera, and as I said, first of all, I don't like to have a frivolous conversation. That block voting and group economics, I'm not interested in anything any of our community is doing unless it's going to change the actual law or policy that those are the things that have us handcuffed.
Right.
The law and policy. And so the only way you can do that is have a substantial vote count on anything that's going on. And you can't do that unless you can come together and pooling your resources financially. I know that my perfect example when I really learned, and I had been in business, I didn't learn this till I was about 50. When McDonald's and these fast food companies was frying the French fries in some type of fat, and the mom said, and they boycotted. McDonald's said, uh-oh. Nah, they changed up real. And so how you spend your money can get you a seat at the table. And I don't think that our community, there has been no laid out total strategy politically or any other way to bring us together in the numbers that we need. And the only way you can get those numbers is from the bottom 2/3 of our community, because they're the ones that are not engaged. And when if you get them engaged, and I think we talked off camera about the effect that Kamala Harris is having on the race, and and that was another reason. Go back to kindergarten and you telling people the people that you admired. And when you talked about your teacher, there was a Doc Lewis when I was in college, because I call my gangster posing as a businessman. She was very influential because I thought I couldn't learn. I thought something was wrong with me. When I say wrong with me, uh, again, I came up in the New York public school system, shop, 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 and gym, gym, gym. And when you start getting enlightened, I found out that I was just as smart or smarter than anybody else. And that's a lot of that has to do with economics, to fill you in. And you dealt in these different financial fields that you have a well-rounded understanding of really what's going on in our community financially. And that's,
Absolutely.
I said all of that to say, because when I listen to everything you said, I apply it to my life, my businesses, and the people I know in the community. And everything you said was 100%, I want to say factual, but as far as I'm concerned, true.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's so important to, and you talk about it too, and you talk about if we're dressing in a certain way because that's what we think we need to do, and if that's all we see, then that's what we'll emulate. And so we have to be able to present a different picture for our young people and even people not so young, because it's never too late to learn. It's never too late to take on a different a career. And so even people, and I definitely have found in my career, banking career, and sitting down with people who were older or same age as I was and had no clue how to do a budget. And so I never take that for granted that somebody automatically knows something because they're a certain age. But it's so vital and key that when we talk to people and not just selling a service or anything, but if when I sit down and I talk to somebody about a mortgage, I want to know, tell me about what you're looking for. Tell me where you are. Where are you in the process? Because maybe I think we're at step 8. We really are at step 2. And so let's go back and let's talk about that. And that's hugely impactful to our community when we can sit down and really talk to people, educate them where they are, uh, and not, look at people and say, well, why do you do this and why do you do that? That's irrelevant. Let's help people right now and let's move them to where
Move
they
forward.
and us can work together. Yeah, absolutely.
So, in closing out, I want you to tell our community how to get in touch with you, why they should get in touch with you, and any of your closing words to our viewers.
So the first thing I want to say is you mentioned Kamala Harris, and I'm just going to tell you, I went to an event the other night at Unity Village, Unity Temple, and there was a women's leadership, Democratic leadership, and Congressman Cleaver was there. And I was so elated. He gave such a rousing speech toward the end. I'm so excited that we see a woman running for president who has a clear chance of winning. I'm excited about that. And I think everybody, regardless of what your politics are, just understand what a momentous time we are in 2024 with what's happening. Currently, my role is a community mortgage loan advisor for First Federal Bank of Kansas City. I'm elated to be with this team. And I really am excited because they have a true and honest vested interest in our community, in the Black community. And what they've charged me to do is to make an impact, find out what it is that our community needs so that they can become homeowners. Oftentimes, and I've seen a lot of this, especially in my other career, looking at credit reports and seeing that there's no mortgage. Well, why don't you own a home? So many of our people are renters. And so we want to move them from renting to owning. It's kind of like the whole idea of renting furniture from some of those, and I won't name them, but renting furniture when you should own that furniture. You got to own your home. So I'm a community mortgage loan advisor and officer. Basically, I'm the lender. So when you're ready to buy a house, you contact me. You work with your realtor. I get you approved. You go find your house, and then we hopefully hand you a key and give you a welcome sign, and now you're a homeowner, which I'm excited to say. First Federal Bank has down payment assistance. Right now, we have $5,000 that we offer to first-time home buyers or anybody if you move into a low to moderate income area. And then we offer that. There are other down payment assistance programs, and we will stack on top of that. So you could partner with Missouri Housing, there's CHWC and KCK. They have money, and so we use their money, we use our money to help people when they apply for a home loan, and those closing costs that you see. And sometimes we don't know what they are, but they're title fees and appraisals and things that you have to do. Just there's a lot of fees with buying a mortgage. And so people don't always have that money. And so these down payment assistance programs, they take over, and those are credits for that money. And one thing too, I don't know if the community knows and people are paying attention, but the administration that may come into office, Kamala Harris, has said that one of the things she wants to do is give $25,000 to first-time home buyers.
Seen that the other day, but a lot of economists are coming out saying a bunch of negative things, and I don't know enough about that. You would know whether that really is going to affect the industry, but give them where you're located.
Sure. So
and you have a website and all of that.
Yeah. So we're at 711 Minnesota Avenue, downtown KCK. First Federal Bank of Kansas City is where I am. And my website is Gwen.Washington at ffbkc.com. So you can contact me. We're putting on a couple events with Tanisha Brown of RKG Realty. We'll be doing some home buying workshops.
Tanisha's been all over the place. She knows how to get that real estate done.
She is, and she's awesome.
She knows how to market herself.
She does.
I love it.
She's very good, and we're working together with her. And I'm on LinkedIn, Gwen Washington. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. But if you have any questions, or if you have any apprehension about buying a home, or just want to know more, just reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to talk with you.
Excellent. I'll use Jimmy Watts. You remember how I told you about them niceties? Watts, when he does his shows, he's always closing out Gwen. It was a plum pleasing pleasure having you on the show tonight.
Thank you so much,
I'd be like, Watts, cut out all the niceties.
Get straight to it.
Yeah, I say, we Snively Whiplash and we tie Sweet Nell to the tracks. Wait for Dudley Do Right to come on Lisa. But how I always close, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
True.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.